Hi there, I'm John Maida, and I'm going to go through some of the highlights of the CX Report Special Addendum on remote work. The entire report's going to come out in end of May, and this is the third try. Walk you through the CX report, the special addendum. The final version will be coming out in late May. And the CX report's genesis is it began as the design and tech report, but I wanted to refocus the report on things that go beyond design. I'm really interested in the intersection of technology, business, and design, and really now know that it is just about experience. And experiences are a combination of technology, business, and design. Oh my gosh, it took me so long. But anyways, here are 5 takeaways for you. If there's one key takeaway to remember, it's that remote work isn't the same as distributed work. Everyone's saying remote work, remote work, remote work. I was lucky to learn from Matt Mullenweg, the CEO and founder of Automatic, also the co-founder of the WordPress project, my former boss. Hey, Matt. And he always would say that remote work is not the same as distributed work, and I kind of scratched my head. Number 2, collaboration is way better than just cooperation. Collaboration technology is really hard to use because most people don't have it. And cooperation technology is all over the place, like email. Let me send you a file. I got the file. But collaboration tech is much more about cloud-first systems. And so collaboration is really hard right now for a lot of folks because they have the wrong tooling. 5 things there. You can read them later. Again, this is all in PDF form, and this is a voice-over PDF, so you can get some context on what's in the PDF. The CX report is a passion project, my side project, and there are a bunch of folks at my workplace, Publicis Sapient, who are really interested in it and have wanted to contribute. So you'll see some of their contributions in the May report. And already, Wendy Johansson, who I get to work with a lot these days, provided a lot of thinking around remote work because she has expertise in this space as well. All right, let's get started. So the first slide I want to share with you all is one of these sort of like, I've always known that slides. It's about the combination of technology, business, and design as adding up to experience. And so when you think about technology, it's about having the right platform, the right guts to make it work, get it right. And then business is about choosing the right model, ensuring that the legal aspects are okay, and first and foremost, it's got to make money. Design is about how it feels, how it sits inside culture. It's either a marketing creative problem, or it's a product get it done problem, or it can be a variety of things when it comes to design. And experience is a sum total of these 3 things together. And making great experience is not easy because everyone owns different aspects of these 3 silos. And the chief experience officer, the job of the CXO is really just to find a way to get those 3 parts to work together and make the sum total multiplicative. Like 3 times 3 times 3 is way better than 3 plus 3 plus 3. And when you ask a bunch of folks, like, what is the CX basis? Like, who owns CX? In the survey I'm running right now, the majority say design, but that's because the majority of respondents, 72% of respondents, are self-reported designers or researchers, so that's highly likely. That said, though, broad range of representation of who should own it is in the data, which I find really exciting. Design, product, marketing, and research, sales. One of my favorite responses in the fill-in is, I'm good with everyone but HR and finance. Hey, no way. If you don't have HR and finance, you can't have a good customer experience, right? Finance. Without finance, you're not going to be able to do anything. Without HR supporting the culture, bad stuff's going to happen. But my favorite response was, who should be in charge? Someone said me, and that is so hilarious. Okay. So the CX report, again, delayed to May 2020. CX is going to be computational experience because a lot of my work in How to Speak Machine, a book that came out last year, lays the foundations for understanding what computation is all about. because most people talk about AI, ML, code, etc., and aren't sure what they're talking about, I think, because they really don't speak machine. So how to speak machine is about building mastery to understand how to speak it un poco. Now, when you think about how we've all shifted to remote, you know how Gibson has said the future is not evenly distributed? Well, remote is everywhere right now. And as Wendy said recently, distributed reality is here. DR is the new VR. I like that. And in distributed reality, you got to remember that remote work, work from home, WFH, is not the same as distributed work. Remote work is telecommuting, working away from your office. Distributed work is working together on the same project and not being in the same physical place. Big difference. So, remote work is not equal to distributed work. Keep saying it, keep saying it. It's so important because, hey, I'm remote working is not as good as, hey, I'm distributed working. And when you're working remotely away from everyone else, or you're working together, there's basically 4 definitions of place. Let me walk through them. First of all, you have IRL. That's when you work in the same place at the same time. You know, you're in the same office, you're in conference room, chocolate, all is good. You're in this sort of sweet sort of synchronization space. And so, hey, pass the document. Can you plug that in for me? A lot of stuff gets done. A lot of communication happens in IRL. Then you've got working at the same time in the same time zone. This is like, I work in Florida and then you work in Maine. No problem. We work in the same time zone. That's quite convenient. And then there's working at the same time in different time zones. Like you might be in Singapore and then your colleague is in Moscow, and you have to kind of figure out how to align time zones to communicate in sync. And then there's asynchronous space. This is where you are neither in the same space or same time. And this is really guru level type work because the level of difficulty master, basic to guru, this is the ultimate. And Matt Mullenweg talks a lot about how async work is the bomb, essentially. So don't forget, IRL, easy, asynchronous, super hard. And the goal is to go from remote work to asynchronous. Your tooling is going to be very important in that case. First of all, you have to have a common definition of where here is. Like, what is the co-location? The co-location, again, in a building is easy to define. I'll see you in the lobby. But when you have digital tooling, you have to say this chat app versus that chat app, this file store versus that file store. So that defines the place. Then you want to cooperate. You want to get folks to work together. But even to get there, you have to get them to cooperate, kind of like each other, kind of hang out. And so you have to earn their attention. And all-way communication is so key in this layer. This is sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of remote work, perhaps. So we can cooperate. Excellent. Now, let's collaborate. Collaboration is not the same as cooperation because collaboration means you have to take action. It requires commitment and accountability. So this is not easy to do. Cooperation is super easy. Did you send me the file? I did. We cooperated. Did we do it together yet? Did we get the work done? That's collaboration. And it really is important to make collaboration happen, not by I told you so, but making it really something that people want to do. And so camaraderie is so key. If you don't have a way to make teamwork awesome, then things will not work out. And in this new remote work world, a lot of workplaces that had fancy furniture and super cool cafes and things, you don't have it anymore. So how do you build that gel is so hard. So I know when I was at Automatic, one of my favorite things that we did was a remote holiday party. And it seemed kind of weird to a lot of folks on the internet, but I find it so cool how 2018 is now 2020 for everyone. So you see a lot of these interesting types of all remote parties happening online. And so you're going to see this occur, and definitely a few companies are going to be born from it. When you want to think about how remote work works, don't forget that we are all people. And Dan Rome at the Stanford D School has this terrific way to enable anyone to draw people, because most people say, I can't draw. And so Dan says, no, everyone can draw a person. They can draw 3 types of people just with sticks, blocks, circles, and blobs. Sticks, blocks, circles, and blobs. Super easy. So for instance, if you wanted to draw a stick person, I find this person really interesting because their face is so big, and so you can really paint the emotion of someone, right? They're like super happy, did it, not too good, sad. Or you can have a person who is action-oriented. They're using blocks and sticks, and so this person's fishing, this person's running, and so it's less about their emotive state and how their body is participating in the world. And then there's relation diagrams using these squiggly things. So this is one click here, this is one click here. Think of a college. This is the athletes and this is the nerds. I was a nerd. Maybe we should flip this. But anyways, relations are things you can define in a diagram with blob people. And when you think about this, there's 3 contexts for experiences, right? There are mind-only experiences, there are body-only experiences, and there are tribe-ish experiences, and there's all kind of combinations. You see these dots, this is the different permutations of them. These are things you experience alone, and these are things you experience together. And there are less tech ways to experience things, like if you're doing a mind-only experience, it could be a book. But in the high-tech world, it's a Kindle. When you're doing a body-only thing, you're hiking, people would argue that your mind is working, but of course your body is the main actor in that. All the way to if you're like at Disneyland, you're having a mind, body, tribe experience. You're all together. If you're at church, for instance, you might have a mind and tribe thing. You can't move around a lot in church. So anyways, this is a way to kind of think of the different kinds of experiences and the ways that technology has changed them. And the way that technology is going to change them forever, and also change ourselves and how we relate to experiences. And since the COVID-19 crisis, I've been tracking all the different business schools and what they cover. I'm a big Harvard Business Review fan, just for the covers maybe, because I love to see what's on the cover. Really beautifully designed journal. But anyways, the HBS recently had a video series with Professor Tsedal Neely about how remote work works and how it's a crisis and how to cope with it. I've also noticed all kinds of folks in the professional world talking about how they're really excited about remote work. This is Daniel Shapiro, Chief Business Officer at LinkedIn, and he's talking about how he's running his meetings from home and his kids can now critique how he runs his executive team meetings. Pretty cool, right? So can you imagine like paying your kids an allowance or a management coaching fee? That could be happening as we speak. But it is a crisis. It's happened, and some folks are able to be privileged enough to manage it well. Some are not. A lot of my friends have lost their jobs, particularly people who are in the service industry, and it's super sad. It is a crisis. It is a shock. For those who are still doing fine in terms of tech workers, essentially, they're all dealing with it differently. If you're in a big tech company, it's not a shock. If you're in a moderate one that was slightly behind the curve, it is a shock. And in general, COVID-19 is a scary thing. And so when you think about it, you have this horizontal axis of time when something happens, and this is the vertical axis, something good happened, something bad happened. And so what happens is when you ride this crisis, this is, by the way, a model by Kubler-Ross. It is basically a way to kind of say how grieving has different phases. When you grieve, when something happens that's sad. And so something happened, you recognize it, you're in shock. And then you want to deny it, and that's impossible. Then you're like, maybe it is something, but I don't like it, and I don't know if I'll be able to recover. And some folks can't recover, and that crisis is real. I'd imagine that many folks out there, this is an absolute crisis at epic proportions, especially anyone from a lower income bracket who no longer is able to travel to work, where their body is their main instrument in work. It is difficult. It is a state of crisis. Then there are those who are finding out how to work this way. Their company may be helping them. They may be helping themselves. And then they're bargaining, like maybe this is going to be okay. And then, okay, it's all right. And they may level off downwards or level off straight or sort of go upwards. Then there are folks who are like, it happened. Oh no. Oh yeah. Yes, we can. I think of myself as a yes we can person, someone who feels, whoa, that's so exciting. What can we do about it? And in reality, there is so much opportunity that's being unlocked right now. And so just staying awake and conscious of what that could be is critical in the business sectors. Now, in How to Speak Machine, I cover everything you need to know about how computation, code, programs, AI, ML works, but not in a proper computer science way, more in a, how do you say, it really is a way to speak un poco of machine. It's not meant to make you fluent. And in the process of the book, I realized that the thing I was most interested in is just people and how we work together. And if you think about it, cooperation and collaboration, I'm a big fan of collaboration. I've seen a lot of cooperation in my life. And this period of my life, I'm just passionate about collaboration. So cooperation is about working with another party at arm's length, whereas collaboration is about having arms hugged around each other. So How to Speak Machine, the whole arc is, let's speak a little machine. Now let's speak human, folks. And we got to do it quickly because the machine is taking over. Because collaboration is so much harder than cooperation. And in 2012, I did a piece for the World Economic Forum with Becky Bermont. And the idea was that hierarchies were going away, hierarchies would be coming because of digital communication technology. You wouldn't have to talk through 5 people to talk to the boss. There was going to be an era where it was less of a hierarchy, but more of a hierarchy, more of a lateral connective space. And distributed cooperation is super easy, taking turns with a file, listening to the boss. But distributed collaboration is much more interesting. Collaborative live editing, listening to each other. So this part here is quite sweet, and how to get there is difficult even in a regular workplace that's not all remote. But when it's all remote, it gets even harder. So leveraging tooling that enables that, in particular technology tooling, and also setting customs, being super explicit, is going to go a long way in your industry, in your company. To understand the nature of collaboration, I was looking at a lot of research. There's a professor at Harvard, Jesse Shore, who talks about a model for how a network structure, like you can have a dense network or a sparse network of people around you. Dense network means you're in a room full of like 1,000 people. Sparse network means there's no one around. And there's 2 kinds of activities. The first is to gather information and to synthesize solutions. And so, again, dense network, sparse network, gather information, synthesize information. So when you want to gather information, you're exploring an information space, find the facts. When you're synthesizing solutions, you're trying to make theories and interpretations. And the conclusion is that, which is so obvious, but it's so important to highlight, it's that to gather information, you need a dense network. You need a lot of people from all kinds of backgrounds collaborating in a way that is really more about cooperating. Like, can you get me facts? Can you get me ideas? And that's a wisdom of crowd. It's basically being able to get a bunch of people to gather as much stuff as possible. Gathering, gather. You can't do that in a sparse network. If you're doing it on different sites, if 20 people on different sites are doing it and you have no idea what the others are doing, it doesn't actually add up. So when you gather information, dense network, yay. When you're synthesizing solutions and you do it with a dense network, it doesn't get good. But it gets much better when you have smaller teams, smaller groups, more sparse, and especially if they're multidisciplinary. And working in the same place, isolated from the crowd, can get you there. This is a common tactic that is used in any organization of any size. What happens ultimately, though, is that people here who were making the ideas are upset that this group here is like running off and doing stuff, but this is scientifically the only way to do things. So I like how this diagram sort of like lays out common sense in such a great way. At the same time, in the digital technology era, a lot of stuff has changed. The ability to cooperate in a dense network has gotten a lot easier. The ability to collaborate is slowly getting easier. Those tools are emerging. But then there's this place I call the uncanny valley of cooperation and collaboration. This is when people like things or comment or comments on comments. They're like, is that Collaboration? I don't think so. It didn't really help me. That is more cooperation masked as collaboration. So be careful of the uncanny valley when people are working together online. You really want to collaborate. So really make your group smaller to create that synthesis quicker and try to shut out the noise that comes from digital technologies that make you think someone is being helpful. And as you optimize the environment digitally, well, it also happens in real life. You have a building. I'm sure you've seen this before. You have a building. You have someone on floor 7 and someone on floor 10. They never talk to each other. And someone on floor 7 is the one person that floor 10 has to talk to because they have the information, but they have no idea. Alternatively, you have a situation today where we can actually telecast our brain, right? Oh, you have a chat channel there. Let me show up there. So telepresence is super easy. You can actually go across rooms, which is terrific. But it's so important to create serendipity, because if you don't consciously cross these boundaries, what will end up is these optimized channels of communication will occur, and even if it's digital, you'll just see this happen all the time. A simple IRL example, in real life example, is express elevators. You go to some buildings, you type in the floor number and it gets you there. I was at Martha Stewart's building like many years ago, and the teams there were saying how the elevator system changed to express elevators, and they were lamenting how optimized it was because they no longer ran into people on different floors, that they would just kind of happenstance exchange ideas. And I thought that's a case study essentially for how serendipity is so important in every environment, not just IRL, but NIRL, not in real life, remote, distributed. And when you're working in this all digital mode, you'll find that you get so many notifications that it's hard to concentrate. You have to remember that most modern digital apps are modeled after Las Vegas slot machines. They're modeled after addictive systems to get your attention and to addict you to the streams of information. When you do that thing on a mobile phone where you use your thumb and you sort of like swipe it down, it's like a jackpot machine, basically. You're hoping you'll get more information, right? It's like a slot machine. So they're designed to take away all your time. Look at me, look at me. So being able to give yourself tools is so important to reclaim your time and attention. So there's 3 kinds of tools: isolation tools, time structuring tools, and mindfulness tools. Isolation tools are tools kind of like if you're on a diet and you like lock the freezer and throw away the key. It's like taking your phone or putting it like in a bag that no one else can open. You don't have to do that anymore. There are apps that can do that for you. And then on the time structuring side, these are used for, when you're working all remote, the rituals go away. Like you can't like hop into your car and go someplace and then like have lunch and have all these rituals that give you your time structure. So time structuring tools let you organize your day much more carefully. And also they alert you that, hey, I think work's over. Take a break. And lastly, mindfulness tools. These are tools that help you meditate, because with all the notifications, the hierarchy is quite tiring sometimes. Just getting so much information as an executive leader or at any level is not what you probably signed up for, but it's great at the same time. But you have to train your brain to be able to be free sometimes through meditation. So there's great mindfulness apps out there to use. There's the State of Remote Work report. This is pointed out to me by Adam Morse, by Owl Labs. They make this cool video conferencing thing, camera thing that I bought on eBay. And it's really nice, but it's not so useful right now because it's good for like 3 people in one room to video conference with others. And so now, because of social distancing, not so useful right now. So that's in a box. In 2019, the survey said 38% of remote workers and 15% of remote managers received no training. Contrast that with 2020. That's 100% of people are not getting training to work remotely or distributedly, and 100% of managers don't have training as well. So this is a serious situation happening today. And the way to get through it is really, what do you say? It's like, what is work? Work is working together, and culture matters the most. I love this Medium post by Brian Chesky. in 2014. Whatever you do, don't blank up the culture. This fact that if you get the culture right, everything can work. A remote culture is completely different from an on-premise culture, an on-prem culture. So crafting that is so key. And Wendy Johansson, my colleague at Publicis Sapient, is the efficiency expert. And so she's always asking, how do we get it done? And we don't get it done by just collaborating with purpose because it felt good, but nothing happened. We don't get it done by purposeful execution because there's no serendipity in it. And we don't do it with collaboration execution because there is no North Star with our values often. So the trick is to navigate our way right here in this sort of hot spot, the efficiency triad, as she calls it. She's exceptional at this. The reason why it's so critical is because we are all people, and people have emotions. And Paul Ekman in 1970s produced this idea that there are 6 universal emotions, and he did this by showing photographs of different emotional states to different people from around the world, and he discovered that people could reliably identify these 6 states: fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and enjoyment. And when I learned about this list, it was slightly depressing because, why is it so rare to be happy? It's because these emotions are so much more common. But I was happy to notice in the 1990s that Ekman adjusted the emotion chart. So there's more emotions, and thank goodness there's more amusement, pride and achievement, sensory pleasure, excitement. So the happy part increased, because really, if you're stuck in these spaces, it's really hard to be generative. And in this current crisis globally, this pandemic, fear will not get you anywhere. Surprise, sadness, disgust, or anger, it's just not constructive. So I keep asking our teams, people that I work with, this is so interesting. Like, what can we do with this? And through that process, the bright spots appear. Because emotions are at play all the time, when you are going online with your entire company, when your entire organization, you have to have a communication code of conduct. I learned this the hard way actually in the early 2000s. I might have been one of the first people who had like a blog inside their company as a CEO, and it definitely taught me a few things. I wish I knew this in the past, but now I know it. You have to have a code of conduct when everyone is together, and a code of conduct is written by the community. And we have this code of conduct at Publicis Sapient that is on GitHub. So you can download this and fork it. Forking it means being able to adapt it to your own use. We think before we type. We welcome diversity. We are harassment-free. Be a good human. This is the short version. There's a longer version as well. But by having such a document, it can be referred to at Publicis Sapient. I think every week I'm reinforcing that, hey, everyone, this is the communication code of conduct. Let's make sure we live by it. Why is it important? It's because if you've noticed, social media can get quite nasty. So imagine bringing all of social media inside your organization, your company. The rules of engagement aren't clear, so you have to define rules and reinforce them. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And also, different things change. Wendy Johansson has a great post called Meeting with Efficiency When Distributed. It's all about how to meet when you're remote, because when you're meeting non-remote, it's so normal for you to show up to a meeting, you sit down, maybe you get the cookies, and everyone behaves, it works a certain way. But when you're all remote, there are no rules for it. So she advises pre, during, post. Pre, make sure you have the agenda pre-reads and don't invite optional people. Why is that important? It's important because in the past, if you had to invite someone who could not come unless they flew, you would say, well, I guess we can't have them. But now you can have anyone you want to in your meeting. So make sure you don't invite optional people, because the travel constraint is no longer a way to test hypotheses. The other point is to have camera on. Make sure that people are not dialing it in, just audio only. This depends, of course. Some people may be taking care of things that they cannot put on camera. That's understandable. But imagine a meeting, having a meeting with your team, and someone has a box on their head and you have no idea what they're doing or what they're thinking. So camera on is really useful. And lastly, post-meeting, be sure to distribute like what happened, because some people who didn't make it will need to catch up. And by the way, Zapier has the best-in-class guide on remote work, I think, out there. It's really beautiful, and it's so deep, so check that out. When time becomes a place, we need different kinds of tools. What I've realized is that there's roughly 5 kind of tools. There's tools that are high def that really take advantage of sync time. So that's like a real-time video thing. I think Zoom is growing in popularity. Someone in Italy just showed me whereby. It's pretty cool. Or there's real-time chat. You don't have to have the video on. You can talk to someone. It's slightly async. This can be things like WhatsApp or Teams or Slack. And this is sort of becoming less def, right? This is high def. This is low def, high def, low def. And then over here in the middle is a nice place. I call them check-in aggregators. They are the robots that ask you basically, hey, stand-up time, what's up? And this is great for across time zones. There's things like the earliest one I knew about was Geekbot. There's like Know Your Team, Status Hero. They're basically automated robots to get status from your teams. That way you don't have to check in with a video meeting. It's much more low def and it's async. Another async method is discussion satellites. I call them discussion satellites because they hover out there. People can post things there. You can give someone a link and they can check it out later. These are anything from a Yammer instance or an internal WordPress site or things like Basecamp, sort of cover a lot of great territory in this way. And lastly, there's a category I call Nouveau Video. I'm so psyched about it. I'm a video editor. I make videos all the time and it's pretty hard, but now Zoom has recordings and also Loom. Loom is a terrific way to share a video, another great emergence of a tool that has such relevance. So it's high def and it's async. So async on the right-hand side, good. Sync, very taxing. So look on the right-hand side for some tools and you might be able to give yourself more time. Dan Harrelson, formerly of GE, posted on LinkedIn about how there was a New York Times article stating that working from home is overrated. And wow, when you give shade to remote work, the remote work religion people like really sort of like come out. So Dan was quite bold to say that it's great, but not good for creative work. That'll be debated. I have a friend who told me recently, I think it works great for a group of executors, but it works less well when people who need to do something strategic or coordinated across a sizable group or tackling anything ambiguous. I have to agree with that friend. And when I agreed with that friend online, whoa, lots of shade appeared. So my conclusion is, yes, you can use remote work to work in a distributed fashion effectively. It's fantastic because it brings better work-life balance. It's able to empower you to source talent from anywhere, not just in your city. And quality outcomes are achievable today. And the tools are only going to get better, especially now because of the 100% remote workers, 100% remote work managers out there that have emerged and are saying, help, I need help. I want to close on how important VR, AR, XR will be. I've been tracking VR, AR for a long time. I'm kind of laughing. It's like people say, oh my gosh, it's coming, it's coming. People have been saying it's coming for over 50 years. But I bought an Oculus Quest when it came out. Oh my gosh, the onboarding experience was incredible. And if you want to just try what it's like to talk to each other in a VR-ish experience, just play any modern video game, any multi-person video game. Or you can try Mozilla Hubs. It's quite nice. It's free and it works in browser or in a headset. So this stuff is going to get so much better as the months and years progress because of COVID-19. So let's see what happens. Lastly, if you wonder like who out there is at the root of a lot of this incredible collaborative technology, I have to give credit to Hiroshi Ishii. He is my former colleague at MIT. He is an amazing inventor. And like since the 90s, he's been thinking about how to communicate with each other in real time, gaze to gaze. And this was an early prototype he made, like a paper prototype basically. And then he implemented it when he was at NTT. And people thought like, that's ridiculous. No one is going to ever need anything like that. Who is going to need to collaborate like that? Just check the research space for the SXSW acronym. A lot of great work is out there that never made it to prime time. And I think it's going to be a terrific well that people will be drawing upon for the next 5 to 10 years. So, commercial for Publicis Sapient. Publicis Sapient is the company that's able to take a company that's in this now space of operating so-so and customer orientation so-so to becoming more efficient. But becoming more efficient is great, but it's even better if you're customer oriented. problem when you're customer oriented is you may not think about cost. The problem when you think about cost is you're going to like forget about the customer. So to go from now to next, it's about combining customer leadership with operation leadership, creating incredible experiences that combine technology, business, and design. And so that's what I do. That's my day job at Publicis Sapient, and I hope you'll check it out. I want to thank everyone who's contributed to the CX Report survey. It's actually still open, and I'm reviewing all the responses. There is incredible information out there, so I will be able to share that. And people are also putting ads for their companies in there, and that's totally okay too. But just no swearing, please. Well, I hope those tips, frameworks, ideas are useful for you in the remote work era. Distributed work, remember that. And please tune in for a few more things that I'm going to be sharing in the coming weeks. I'm going to try to do more YouTube. I have a new camera set up, so kind of fancy, so check it out. Thanks very much.